My name is William Crawford and I'm running for governor for the state of Florida. A lot of people have been asking me, whenever they see my palm cards, if I'm really able to uphold the promises that are labeled on here. I want to go over those with you at this time. Promise number one is to uphold the U.S. Constitution. It's basic, it's simple, it's the foundation of our nation. If you're unable to uphold the Constitution of the United States, then you shouldn't be running for office. The second one is to adhere to the Florida Constitution. Well, once again, that's the basic laws of our state. And if you're unable to uphold those, then you shouldn't be running for state legislator, state office, state senate, or governor. The third one is to enforce the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Well, that's a very important constitutional amendment. That gave the states the rights to make their own laws within their state, and basically says that the federal government cannot usurp the rights of the states. I don't see where the problem lies in that, except for right now in our current economic situation, the way that everything is set up, we basically rely on the federal government to provide us with the money that we need on a daily basis. Well, I would like to see a shift that money to where it comes from the states to the federal government. He who holds the gold rules. It's the old golden rule. And basically, once the states start handling the money and providing to the federal government the money that they need, then the states can then say, here's our plan, here's what we're going to do, and you can't now intrude on our rights and our freedoms. So that's one thing that I would like to see made possible and a change be made. The other is defend the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. Well, once again, that goes back to the basic rights to bear arms. That right was given to us by our forefathers. It was amended into the Constitution whenever the Constitution was first enacted, and basically stated that that right can't be infringed upon. The word infringe is a Latin word brought about around 1500 AD, and basically states that you don't have the right as a federal government to impose any regulations on any ammunition, any weapons, or anything. So I'd like to see us uphold that once again. You know, I understand there are a lot of people out there who go, well, what about, assault rifles and assault guns? What's an assault rifle? What's an assault gun? I mean, the law as it's was currently written, because that law did go away, basically never gave clear definition to what an assault weapon was. So, we need to go back to the time whenever the people of America were armed equally to the defenders of America, because, we can't rely on our military every day to provide us with the safety and security that we need as a nation. And, once the American populace has the access to the weapons that are necessary, I think that a lot of the evils that we face around the world will cease to exist, because once again, you've got people that understand that, if you invade or start a war within the United States, that the people there are well armed and, might not be a well-regulated militia, but whenever the end of the day comes, I think that enough can band together to help protect this nation should our soldiers and brave men and women be overseas or whatever the case be. The other is freeze Florida State's government spending on all non-crucial programs. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we're not going to freeze the fire department, the state police. We're not going to freeze the schools and things like that, because those are crucial programs. But there are a lot of non-crucial programs that can have their funds frozen and help us get past this current economic situation that we're facing. So the other is to free state government employee pay. I know that's a very unpopular one, but at the time when the American people and people of Florida are facing a 12.3% unemployment rate, and you have a lot of people without jobs, and then the people who have jobs are not being given a raise, why should our state employees be given raises? Because ultimately that comes out of the state budget. And if the people out there working on a daily basis in the private sector are unable to get raises, that means they have less money to provide to the state. So therefore the state should not be providing to the employees a raise for a while, just until the economic situation rights itself. Ultimately, what I would like to see happen is a program where we work with the state employees to find waste, fraud, and abuse within their departments and offer them a bonus on the third year for every first year that they've found the waste, fraud, and abuse. So if, let's say, this year in 2011 they find $1 million in their Department of Waste, Fraud, and Abuse, then they would qualify for 5% for their department to be split amongst all employees. And 95% would go back either to the general fund or to the taxpayers, and that would allow them to have a bonus, which all of a sudden, if you start incentivizing the people within the department, I bet you they're going to find a lot of ways to cut cost. So that's one program I would love to see enacted. Another is to find a private entity to purchase the high-speed rail or in the program. That's simple. That's granted to us in the amendment that was made in the Florida Constitution whenever they first enacted the high-speed rail in 1999. So if we find a private entity such as a Disney or a co-op between Disney, Universal, the Busch Gardens, those projects, and let them buy the high-speed rail, since it primarily will benefit those companies, it makes more sense than it being a taxpayer expense project like it currently is. I mean, right now, if the state of Florida was to depend on just the taxes from the citizens, we would not have enough to start the high-speed rail program. That's why the federal government had to give us $1.2 billion in order for us to start the high-speed rail project. So that's one thing I would like to see done away with or sold to a private entity. The other thing is to end government contributions for pension programs. Now this is pretty simple. I mean, at this time we're at $15.4 billion short on our promises to the government workers in 2011. It's a very sad situation whenever these people are depending upon us to provide them with their retirement funds. So if we went to a private 401k like your employer does at your job if you're in the private sector, then you're all of a sudden relying on the stock market, you're relying on bonds, those types of programs in order to pay all of the pensions for you. So why should we not do the same for state employees? So the other is to reduce large and small employer tax burdens. Basically, it's to cut a portion of the corporate tax. We're not going to take it down to zero like in Nevada, but getting on that subject, that's currently how one of my opponents is planning on creating jobs, is by reducing the small employer tax burden and the corporate tax. Now, I'm not a financial genius in any stretch of the imagination, but let's look at this apples for apples. We look at a state like California with an 8.65% corporate tax rate, not federal, but state corporate tax rate. And you look at a state right next to it that borders it, Nevada, basically separated by the Sierra Nevada mountains. So Nevada has a 0.0% corporate tax rate. Now, wouldn't it say to you that if the corporate tax rate being reduced would create jobs, that Nevada would have the highest, actually the lowest unemployment rate in the nation? Well, they don't. They have a 13.4% unemployment rate at this current time. Now, all these companies that are located in California could easily move into Nevada, where they could take advantage of this 0.0% corporate tax rate. But we don't see companies moving from California into Nevada to take advantage of this. Why do we think that companies are going to move from other states into Florida just by cutting the corporate tax rate? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for Nevada. It's not helped them in reducing their unemployment rate. And it doesn't make sense for Florida. All it's going to do is lead to more budget shortfalls. What we have to do is create jobs, and I'll have a plan for that coming up later.